Even the wisest of kings can stumble, and Solomon was no exception. Behind the facade of grandeur, wisdom hides a weakness that, as it surfaced, brought his reign to the brink of the abyss. Today, we will delve into every minute detail described in the pages of the Bible, from Solomon's ascent to the throne to his last days of life. I believe this meticulous work deserves that you leave a like and subscribe to the channel to help us promote this video. Solomon, the son of King David and Bathsheba, is a remarkable figure in the scriptures of the Bible, standing out for his wisdom, wealth, and fundamental role in the construction of the Temple of Jerusalem. Solomon's ascent to the throne of Israel occurred in a context marked by challenges and family intrigues. After David's death, his son Adonijah tried to seize the throne, but the prophetic intervention of Nathan and Bathsheba ensured that Solomon, chosen by God, was crowned king. God's revelation to David, in which it was said that Solomon would succeed him and build the temple in Jerusalem, occurs in the first book of Chronicles, chapter 22, with God saying the following: "You have shed much blood and fought many wars. You shall not build a temple in my honor, because you have shed much blood on the ground before me. Nevertheless, you will have a son who will be a man of peace and tranquility. His name will be Solomon, and I will give peace and quietness to Israel during his reign." Solomon, known for the meaning of his name, which is peace, began his reign promoting stability and unity in the kingdom. The most prominent characteristic of Solomon that set him apart among the leaders of his time was his extraordinary wisdom. Solomon made a significant covenant with God during the early days of his reign, a moment that demonstrates not only his wisdom but also his intention to seek divine guidance in his rule. This covenant and its conditions are documented in the first book of Kings, chapter 3, verses 3 to 14. The key event happened in Gibeon, where Solomon offered sacrifices before the Lord. That night, God appeared to Solomon in a dream and said, "Ask me what you want, and I will give it to you." In response, Solomon expressed his humility, acknowledging the responsibility of leading the people of Israel and mentioning his need for wisdom to judge and rule justly. He recognized his absolute dependence on God to guide his steps and make wise decisions that would benefit the people of Israel. Solomon's choice to ask for wisdom instead of wealth or personal success demonstrated his desire to lead with integrity and justice, reflecting the heart of a wise and God-fearing leader. God's response to Solomon's plea was remarkable. God praised the king's choice and, in addition to granting the wisdom Solomon asked for, also promised additional blessings, including wealth and honor, that would be unparalleled in the history of Israel. A famous episode illustrating this wisdom is that of the two women disputing the motherhood of a child. The narrative found in the first book of Kings, chapter 3, verses 16 to 28, describes two women living together who gave birth at the same time. However, one of the children died, leading both women to claim the surviving child as their own. Faced with this impasse, the women appeared before King Solomon seeking justice. Instead of making a hasty decision, Solomon proposed an extraordinary solution. He suggested dividing the child in half and giving each woman half. The responses of each woman revealed the true mother. The woman who genuinely loved the child pleaded with the king not to harm the child and instead suggested that the child be given to the other woman. The other woman, who was not the biological mother, agreed to the proposed division. Solomon's astute response revealed the true mother, the woman willing to give up the child to protect it from harm. Solomon then proclaimed that the true mother was the one who demonstrated genuine maternal love and ordered the child to be given to her. In addition to his wisdom, Solomon also became known for his remarkable achievements, including the construction of the Temple of Jerusalem. This grand project not only served as the spiritual center of the kingdom, but also symbolized the continuous presence of God among the people of Israel. The grandeur of the temple demonstrated not only Solomon's administrative ability, but also the wealth and prosperity of the kingdom. The desire to build a temple to the Lord was initially conceived by his father, King David. However, it was Solomon who carried forward this noble project. The biblical narrative describes intricate details and precious materials such as cedar from Lebanon for the structure and pure gold for ornaments, used in the construction of the temple, reflecting the king's dedication and reverence for God. The chosen location for the temple, Mount Moriah, had profound symbolic significance, being the same place where Abraham demonstrated his faith by being willing to sacrifice his son Isaac. This act of faith and obedience that preceded the temple highlighted the continuity of the special relationship between God and his people. Solomon's temple became the spiritual and cultural epicenter of Israel, a symbol of unity and worship. Solomon also dedicated himself to international alliances, solidifying commercial and diplomatic relations. The visit of the Queen of Sheba, who came to test Solomon's wisdom, is a notable example of these external relations. These events were recorded in the first book of Kings, chapter 10, verses 1 to 13, and in the second book of Chronicles, chapter 9, verses 1 to 12. Upon arriving in Jerusalem, the Queen of Sheba presented difficult questions to Solomon, testing his wisdom. The Bible reports that Solomon answered all her questions, and there was nothing he could not explain. The Queen's journey to Jerusalem was marked by an impressive caravan carrying an abundance of spices, gold, and precious stones. The exchange of gifts during the visit had diplomatic significance. In addition to the Queen of Sheba's visit, Solomon also established diplomatic relations with other kingdoms. He made marital alliances with princesses from neighboring nations such as Egypt and Phoenicia, a common practice at the time to strengthen alliances and promote peace between kingdoms. However, throughout his reign, Solomon was not immune to failure. Although Solomon was celebrated for his wisdom and grandeur, his story was also marked by mistakes and deviations that eventually had significant consequences for his reign and the history of Israel. One of Solomon's main deviations was his involvement with foreign women, contrary to divine instructions. The Bible reports in the first book of Kings, chapter 11, verses 1 to 3, that Solomon took many foreign wives in addition to the daughter of Pharaoh, and took princesses from neighboring nations, contradicting God's law that prohibited marriages with women who worshipped other gods. These marriages were not only political alliances, but also introduced foreign cultural and religious influences into Israel. The foreign wives brought their religious practices and gradually exerted a negative influence on Solomon. He began to tolerate the worship of various idols and participate in rituals that were contrary to the exclusive worship of the God of Israel. The culmination of this deviation was the construction of temples for the idols in honor of the deities of his wives, an act that directly contradicted God's commandments. This apostasy, which included the construction of altars, marked the last days of Solomon as reported in the first book of Kings, chapters 11 and 12. They were marked by a mixture of glory and shadows, revealing the complexities of life and governance. As Solomon aged, his previous choices, especially regarding marriages with foreign women and the acceptance of the worship of foreign idols, this began to negatively impact his reign. The wrath of God manifested and adversaries were raised against Solomon. Jeroboam, a trusted official, rebelled against the king and became a prominent leader who would eventually become the leader of the northern tribes. Solomon's death marked the end of an era. He died after a reign of 40 years, leaving a legacy that included the majestic construction of the Temple of Jerusalem and unprecedented peace and prosperity. The Bible does not provide specific details about the exact cause of Solomon's death. However, in the first book of Kings, chapter 11, verses 41 to 43, it is recorded, "The rest of the story of Solomon, everything he did and the wisdom he demonstrated, is written in the book of the Acts of the Kings of Israel." The days that Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all of Israel were 40 years. Then he rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David, his father, and Rehoboam, his son, was his successor. With Solomon's death, his son Rehoboam assumed the throne. This resulted in the division of the kingdom of Israel into two: the northern kingdom, led by Jeroboam, and the southern kingdom, mainly composed of the tribes of Judah and Benjamin, led by Rehoboam. Thus, the last days of Solomon were followed by a tumultuous transition for his son, who saw the kingdom his father built split under the weight of the consequences of his choices. Solomon's story is an eloquent reminder of the importance of ethical and spiritual decisions, as well as the long-term consequences of these decisions on the life of a leader and the fate of a nation. If you made it this far, I understand that you must have enjoyed the content. Therefore, I ask you to subscribe to the channel and leave your opinion in the comments about the story. Hugs and stay with God.